Okay, materials for this thing. Body is Antron dubbing. I'm going to use a kind of a bright olive green for the body. Then we use, there's different colors of this stuff. You can go with this, I'm trying to think of what it is. My brain's gone dead. It's on the package, Dave. Flashaboo accent, and it's their fine stuff. I've tied some with this, really bright. It's almost a fluorescent color, and then this kind of gray, and then there's a kind of a tannish cream color. I'll just use the one that's almost gone here. It's kind of a white. It's a rainbow Flashaboo accent. Changes color when you twist it in the light. Okay. So that's the piece we tie on first. This is the part that, oh, I know what I'll do. Use this instead. There's a tan Antron dubbing thread. It's like a rope. I'm not going to do that because that was the one that I was swearing at. Okay, this stuff is really good. I love it. Works really, really well. And if I can tie these things, it only took me 4 to get it right. The first 3 I attacked with a razor blade. Everybody's got a razor blade, or an X-Acto knife for fixing flies.
Well, mine are perfect all the time. So
yeah, well, how do you know?
I just lose match of the trees.
That tree at Little Smoky's gone. The one upstream from the bridge. Somebody must have noticed all the flies in it and cut it down. But it's gone. That little bush that was upstream. I know your wife put at least 1 in there. And I was fishing downstream from her, so I put at least 2 in there the same day. Okay, now, next step is this beautiful stuff. This is going to form the bubble, the air bubble. So I tie the first piece on the far side of the hook. Now you could also take, depending on how thick you want, heavy you want this bubble to be on the hook, you could tie 2 strands on each side so that you get a thicker bubble. But I figured 1 was enough to drive me crazy. I'm not going to work with 2. So tie them on the sides of the hook. The alternative way to do this is to tie it on top and bottom, so that when you fold it, because what I'm going to do is fold this towards the eye and then push it back to form a bubble. Okay, so there's my handy dandy little, cut this off, get it out of the way. Okay, now we're going to with the bright green. This is just an Antron dubbing box that arrived one Christmas. There's enough dubbing in there to keep me busy for a while. I went back to Fishing Center to see if they had any more of the same. Somebody beat me to it, I think. Guidus beat me to all the dubbing that was in there. The first week of the sale, he said he spent $75 in there. So I was in there the last day. Very little left, except the big grin on Lauren's face. He said he was ready. He'd had enough after 21 years of retail. So.
What's he going to do now?
For a while, nothing. I asked him if I could come back at 5 o'clock on the day they were closing and buy anything that was left, and he said no, because I'll be halfway into my 2nd drink by then. So, oh sure, cooperate. Gotta put a little more dubbing on there. Now the idea of using Antron dubbing is that it floats. It's looks quite well to float flies, dry flies. Now remember, this is not really a dry fly. This is a fly that is going to rise. So you've got to kind of wait for it. The hook will drag it down a bit, and then as you strip it should rise. There we go. Now the fun part. Remember, patience is a virtue. So, rotary vise is a savior for this. Pull it towards the eye, shift it back and kind of spread it out as I shift it. And get a hold of it. Take a loose wrap around and then a tight one. So that it looks like that. And later you can take your scissors or a bodkin and pull it around to cover the whole hook. The interesting part is to try and get the loops approximately the same height. That was where the fun. I'm one of these guys that try to tie the flies so they look about the same every time I tie them. Although it doesn't really matter because the fish don't care. There we go. So now, notice I didn't cut these off. This one is a little bigger than the one on the other side. So I grab the end and gently pull to even it out. Little trick. Then you can tie it down nice and tight so it doesn't slide. Cut off the excess. Okay, now options here. Take a feather from the edge of this reasonably decent hackle, brown hackle, and I'm going to pull some fibers off it. So all I want is the fibers off it, so I'm going to go looking for a relatively ugly feather. There's one here. Get a saddle hackle. Go in here and just grab a few fibers off the hook, off the feather. Not a whole bunch, just a few. Cheat. Turn the hook upside down. Keep from poking my fingers. Use the pinch wrap. Tie that on there so that it's on the bottom, so that the legs of the pupa are underneath. Then trim them off. Did I get them all? No. Okay. Now, the feather that everybody figures is the most delicate thing you ever want to work with. It's not. It's fuzzier than peacock herl, but it's not as brittle. So it will stand up a little better. So I'm just going to try and dig one strand out here. And take the tip, because that's where it's the most flexible.
Are you saying we should be using peacock?
Ostrich herl? For some stuff, yeah. We can't get the color that we get with peacock, though. No, and that's the Leroy's.
It's not just the color; it's also UV reflection.
Yeah, yeah. But the Leroy's trick of making a rope out of the peacock, you know, wrapping your tying thread around the peacock herl, works really well. You don't end up with. Now, I'm going to wrap a reasonably large head on here. I watched another video on how to tie these things, and the guy took fluorescent green fabric paint for the head instead of this ostrich. So it had a fluorescent green head on it.
So you just painted the head without putting.
Yeah, you just took a tube, squeezed a little tube, a little paint out of the tube, took a toothpick and touched it on the end, and that was the head. I thought, okay, that sounds like it might work to me. Might make it so I could see it. This should break off, I hope. Yep. And that's it. This is a Gary LaFontaine fly, sparkle pupa. He called it, the fiber that he used for the bubble, a trilobal carpet fiber. I looked and looked and looked and looked until I saw an advertisement for trilobal antron. I knew that's what he was doing. That's it. That's the sparkle pupa.